Peace and blessings, Star Family. Welcome to another lunar cycle video. I'm Michael, this is oneskyastrology. Thank you. On the 20th of April, 2023, another new moon is approaching, and it's approaching with big, heavy footsteps, fam. So it's going to be good to understand it. This month looks really intense, really like the potential to be intense and even problematic. It's eclipse season, which happens about every 6 months, but it really shakes things up when it does. Sets in motion and catalyzes new unexpected things and just has an abrupt effect, a turbulent effect in a lot of cases. We have a new moon eclipse and a full moon eclipse this lunar cycle. The new the new moon is happening square to Pluto with 3 very important stars activated. And the full moon is going to be a shadow of an eclipse, just a little discoloration of the moon. No occultation, no actual literal eclipse, but just a little shadow called a penumbral eclipse. But let's take it back. If you're new to this channel, or you're like, hey, April 20th is the first day of Taurus season, Pisces Aries cusp, who is this guy? Well, that's mainstream Western astrology, places April 20th to Taurus, and that's also known as tropical astrology, and we're not doing that. We're using sidereal astrology on this channel. And we're doing that because that's the way that the ancients did it worldwide. It's where our ideas about astrology come from. And we're going to go back to the roots and engage in the radical astrology of looking at the living skies. So, yeah, let's jump in. Right, here's Taurus in the sky on April 20th. This is the chart of the new moon, just so we can get a sense of where things are. And we can see that the sun is not here in Taurus at all. It's actually 2 signs away in the end of Pisces. So we have a new moon with the North Node for an eclipse on the Pisces Aries cusp. In Pisces, it's with Neptune, it's with Chiron, and very closely with Jupiter and Eris. In Aries with the North Node, we have Mercury and Uranus. Good to see these two together almost all the time. We have Venus having moved into Taurus, taking up a position on fixed star Aldebaran, very bright, very important star. We have Mars in Gemini in the degree of fixed star Sirius, the brightest star in the sky, and a very, very significant stellar body. The South Node here is in Virgo, just beginning its journey through Virgo, moving contrary to the planets, as nodes do. Pluto's here in Sagittarius Capricorn area, this sort of cusp of power, the cusp between the stars of Jupiter and Saturn. So this very powerful territory that Pluto, a very powerful body, who has a lot to say about power and control and force, he's going to go retrograde and move back into Sagittarius, so moving really slowly right now, and just very much in a cuspy no man's land, a powerful cusp. Cusps, all the cusps are powerful in a way, like a twilight, or like a sort of magical, like it's a highly charged area of the sky. Those transitional periods, because this eclipse happens on a cusp, the Pisces Aries cusp, I think we'll have a chance to take a look at that concept in a little more depth. Anyway, we have Saturn, and he is in Aquarius for the third month in a row, and he's also in the degree of a very powerful, very bright star, fixed star Fomalhaut in Pisces Australis, and that is the starting point for this lunar cycle. That's the new moon, friends. So let's take a look at the charts. Okay, it's 20th of April, 2023. For some people in the world, this moon will happen on the 19th of April. You can see by the time of day that it's really early on the 20th. So your mileage may vary depending on which time zone you're in. We do have a total solar eclipse, so things are going to be about as catalyzed as possible. The North Node and the Sun and Moon are very close. It's going to shift things a little bit more in its orientation this month and for the next 6 months. It's going to shift focus towards the future. There's just going to be less energy available to resolve, look back, reflect, or do those sort of retrospective things. And there's just going to be more natural energy for the next 6 months that's looking future forward. It's just interested in potential and possibility and things that don't exist yet, maybe things that could exist, maybe trying to figure out of the turbulence and chaos of recent events. It's where we're going anyway. Like what is all this leading to? And these could be questions on a lot of people's mind right now. But the Pisces Aries cusp is about new beginnings. It's a culmination of the old, and it's the sprout, the sprout of the new. And we're going from the nebulous, we're going from the unknown and the undefined of Pisces to the defined, to the clarified. For a lot of these new moons, I go into the qualities of the stars, the classic qualities and properties of the stars, the groups that we see the sun and moon in. Because the energies and understanding it just colors everything so vividly. But when we have a cusp is a transition. It doesn't encapsulate clearly one set of energies. And rather than talking about both sets of energies and trying to encourage people to just kind of mix or blend, I want to talk about cusps. Because a cusp is representative of a process of transition. So a cusp is representative of a metamorphosis. For this reason, it's like a twilight or a dusk or a dawn. It's like a highly charged, like a very electric borderland kind of area. So magically, spiritually, metaphysically, there's a lot of power here. There's a lot of power. And it's the twilight between two powerful forces. Not only that, but there's a great juxtaposition between the two forces, Pisces and Aries. And the easiest way for me to think of it is for me to think of late Pisces as the world card. The world card, the 21st major arcana of the tarot deck. And it's not important whether you know tarot, but this card is about completion. This card is about fulfillment and wholeness, holistic vision of the world and oneself in it. It's usually illustrated by a naked woman, or just sort of like shroud, maybe just clothed in a silk that's like very, very sky clad, very like flying through the sky naked, just totally free, totally complete, needing nothing. And we can think of Aries, as the first major arcana, the magician. And when we think of Pisces as the world, we're thinking of completion, we're thinking of spiritual oneness, we're thinking of totality and a microcosm, macrocosm, and we're thinking of the boundaryless world, spirit, spiritual truth, the infinite ocean of consciousness. And when we're thinking about Aries, and we're thinking in tarot terms, we're thinking about the magician who stands at his ceremonial table with the elements or magical implements representative of the elements displayed on the table. So he's brought everything into harmony. His hand points up and down like a Baphomet, symbolizing as above, so below. And the magician is about that primordial urge, that urge to do, the urge to be, the urge to discover and explore. And in the way that Aries represents all of the Martian qualities, including drive and motivation, our urges, desires, all the things that we want fulfilled consciously, we can see these things in the archetype of Aries. And the magician is the one who sets out to so it's the first card, because it's that like primordial burst, that catalyst of will that sets in motion a trajectory, an arc of evolution. And this is precisely why this cusp here at the Aries Pisces juncture is really powerful, because this is representative of the Fool card. This transition is representative of the Zero card, that card that can be in any position or any number, the card that's sort of universal. Card that's often given the descriptor, this is about the descent of spirit into matter. And that's very perfect when we look at Pisces. Pisces is spirit. Pisces is spirit. And Aries is that urge to individuate, to differentiate, to experience. And so this cusp is about every such border between almost like it almost encapsulates all the space between binary 1 and binary 0. Just the whole gray area and everything. All that potential is wrapped up and encapsulated in an energy of new beginnings. New beginnings. So I encourage everybody, we've been in Pisces territory for long enough that I hope the Fool is a guise that we can relate to and adopt because it's certainly a little bit gosh, in Pamela Coleman Smith's depiction, the classic Rider-Waite tarot deck depiction of the Fool is like naively, sort of blithely wandering off a cliff. That's Pisces, right? No boundaries, no clue, no need for differentiation, just raw, unstructured space. And the Fool's dog is actually pulling him back. It's like, come on. Now, the dog is Aries, the animal instincts. And the naivety of the Fool is the overwhelming intoxication of the ambrosial quality of the ocean of consciousness, which is to say, the bliss of absorption into the totality, just the totality of mind that Pisces can represent. Ordinarily, I give a lot of lists of qualities. I talk about the highs and the lows and maybe what it wants. And in this instance, I just want to keep it very simple because this is a little bit complex kind of point, this Pisces Aries cusp. And I want to keep it really simple. I want to keep it about new beginnings. I want to keep it about juxtaposition. And I want to keep it about emergence, emerging newly to start new paths, new adventures, new journeys out of the nebulous, emerging out of the nebulous to start new journeys. Exactly what this place in the sky, these degrees are about. So let's start to break this down. Let's build on that. Ordinarily, I would look at Pluto first. We've got a very close relationship here, square. The sun and moon make to Pluto, but I'm not going to do that. We'll save that for a little later. The first thing I want to talk about is all the stars that are lit up. We mentioned them on the quick flyby when we were looking in the planetarium view. We have 3 major stars. I mean major. Venus is on Aldebaran, a star that's given rulership to her in ancient times. Saturn likewise on his own royal star of Fomalhaut. And Mars is on the brightest star of the sky, Sirius. Now, the 4 royal stars of Persia are where we're going to start. They're Aldebaran, Fomalhaut, Aldebaran, Antares, and Regulus. And whenever they come up, I give a lot of attention to them. They're very important in astrology, and they always have been. I'm going to read a little Bernadette Brady. I'll just paraphrase. She says the 4 royal stars each offer the possibility of glory, success, or happiness, but only if a particular nemesis can be overcome. In the case of Aldebaran, where Venus is, this nemesis is one of, or the challenge is one of integrity and honor. Greatness can be achieved, but the individual will be challenged on issues of integrity and the purity of their thoughts and dealings. These stars are also known as the watchers at the corners or the archangel stars. Always associated with like virtuous tests. Brady goes on to say that the royal stars offer these tests where if you fail the test, you can lose everything. So it's power. It's a gift of power. It comes with certain power, but it comes with a certain test, and the power will not be yours to keep unless you pass the test. And if you fail the test, the loss can be total. These stars can take everything from a person, an organization, a situation. You really have to be aware and careful of these royal stars. So Brady goes on just on the subject of Aldebaran, Alpha Taurus. She says the presence of Aldebaran in a chart indicates that people will have to face moral dilemmas which challenge your integrity. Success will be presented, and I've rarely seen it otherwise. Comes out on a platter. Success. However, along the journey, you will be tempted to compromise your position or to go against your own integrity. This is part and parcel. Be aware that when this star is involved, any compromising of your integrity will have negative results, and all that is gained could be lost very rapidly. And all the royal stars share that in common. So we talked about Fomalhaut, where Saturn is last month, but we've got two of these stars, two of these tests, and they're in square aspect to each other. So, Fomalhaut 2 gives Saturn great power as a royal star right now. It's associated with purity of vision and with very lofty ideals. It also, like Aldebaran, is going to give power, and it's going to give a test, and it tests the worthiness of the person or enterprise to whom power has been given. And the test of Fomalhaut is whether the vision in question is of universal benefit. How big, how universal is the vision? Is it just for me and my people, or is it for all beings, all beings without exception? It's like a bodhisattva star. So with Fomalhaut, we see an emphasis on inclusivity, acceptance, and actually liberality, concordant with the energies of Aquarius. So it's actually humanitarianism is what's being tested by Fomalhaut. And just as Aldebaran again has this energy of honor, of accomplishment, but there will come challenges of a person's integrity. Challenges of a person's integrity. And integrity just means do thoughts, speech, action, intentions, and other subtle dimensions of the psyche, are they in alignment? Do they all line up? Are we genuine? Are we authentic? That's what Aldebaran wants to know. Fomalhaut wants to know, are we humanitarian? So are we genuine, and are we humanitarian? Are we authentic? Do we have integrity? And do we have a greater vision than one that might be constrained perhaps by our own selfishness? Let's move on. There's a lot to cover. Mars on Sirius Sirius isn't a royal star, but it's really similar. It gives power, and it also comes with its kind of problems. It's not like a pass-fail test where a person's going to lose everything. But Sirius is the brightest star in the sky. It's connected to great deeds, connected to almost everything important that's happened historically in some way or another. Sirius is connected to great things and to seeing the sacred in the mundane. Yeah, it's one of my favorite things about Sirius. There's a real energy here of just like, whoa, seeing the precious in the insignificant. Bernadette Brady says that if a person is brave enough to stride forward and go through the pain and turbulence implied by Sirius, then success is assured. And we can see in there the similarities to the qualities of the royal stars in that regard. Sirius is a star that really demands the expression of its energies, some kind of constructive expression in the area that's indicated in the chart. Otherwise, a person can be burnt up simply by inaction. And Sirius is another star that gives greatness and a challenge, but the challenge, again, is not a test of character. It hardly matters with two tests of character like looming front and center this new moon, but Sirius just teaches us about ourselves, teaches us about our strength, and it hones our skills by giving us a lot to handle. Sirius is a scorching star. It's a hot star, and people who are marked or touched by Sirius tend to have that success, but they have to accomplish that success by just handling a lot. They kind of get burned. Sirius, classic, get burned and handle it. And if they can handle it, they'll be successful. There's a couple other alignments to understand. Some things I think would help to go over just when we're looking at the alchemy of the cycle, the new moon. The new moon is sort of like a natal chart for the whole cycle. We can get a sense of the intention, what's here and what wants to happen. So when we see sun and moon on Beta Andromeda fixed star Merak, this is a star that's actually very receptive, very passive, very docile. And it gives a lot of devotion, benevolence, forgiveness, love. Overcoming by kindness is about as aggressive as Merak gets. This is a very passive, very docile star. And those qualities were given by Vivian Robson, and Eberton says that the star is associated with cheerfulness, happiness, many interests, altruism, a tendency to inspiration, and mediumship as a base for artistic creation. It's very deep Pisces theme, mediumship and inspiration, artistic creation. These are big Pisces buzzwords, but this star in particular, not a Pisces star, Beta Andromeda. Mercury too is conjunct a star, and Alpha star, Menkar, Alpha Cetus, and Cetus is associated with unconscious forces in the psyche, and that's going to be a little bit of a segue to this square to Pluto, which we haven't even looked at, but we're going to get there. But we do have Mercury associated with unconscious forces in the psyche, the kind of collective unconscious, almost like the monster within. I think Freud had his son culminating with Menkar. This is a star that's really associated with the depths and a monstrosity of just what the human experience, what a psyche is. Very interesting star. Sun and moon conjoin Jupiter and Eris. It's going to be important as we move through the cycle. But just for the new moon, I think that conjoining Jupiter is always going to bring a sense of ease. It's going to allay and balance a lot of the difficulties, any inherent difficulties that might come to affect the sun and moon. It's just going to shield the sun and moon the way the pericardium shields the heart. Jupiter is one of the only forces in the sky that can balance Rahu, that can hang with Rahu. Rahu still gives him a run for his money, trust me, but Jupiter is one of the only planets, the only grahas in Vedic astrology who can just stand ground and not be just corrupted by Rahu. The north node. Rahu is the north node. So when we see Jupiter with a north node eclipse, that's really good. That's really good. Even with Eris, even with this force that many people sort of fear and doubt, the force of primordial chaos or whatever. And a sun moon conjunction with Eris is going to portend turbulence, chaos, work. We'll look more at Eris for the full moon because she's making very close alignments with Pluto and Mars. And that gets really, really interesting because of the relationship those three share. For now, I want to say Pluto and Eris are square, and when they both are affecting the new moon, we can guarantee that the new moon will be around deep issues, unconscious and even hidden issues that issues that could be compelling, issues that could be very powerful, and issues that could have to do with control. We have to see the Sun Moon Pluto relationship, even though I saved it for last when we're looking at this new moon. We have to see it as very important because it's so close. It's going to have a profound impact. So we have with Sun Moon square Pluto the emergence of hidden or suppressed feelings. That's a real classic. A Pluto square Sun or Pluto square Moon. You have the expression of things that you didn't even know were in there. It gets weird fast. You've urges, desires emerging from an unconscious level, compulsive, potentially destructive behaviors, power struggles, personal secrets or family secrets could be exposed under this influence. And a positive expression of a Pluto square to a new moon would be conscious exploration, Sun Moon, conscious exploration of problematic and powerful, that's the square, unconscious material, Pluto. So you could have conscious exploration, some constructive exploration, excavation, inner work. This is very fortuitous for deep inner work. Pluto's in critical late Sag, and it's tuned into natural law here. It's tuned into universal truth. It's tuned into the oneness and non-duality. Philosophically, that Pisces Sun Moon is tuned into experientially. So there's no escape from there's no escape from the deep truth of the universal truth of natural law. It's going to be a theme this cycle. And we can say that Pluto in critical late Sag is tuned into natural law. It's very broadly accepting and inclusive here. That's going to be resonant with those Saturn on Fomalhaut energies. If you remember, we talked about humanitarianism and inclusivity. Pluto here is tuned into the spiritual truths of Sag, and Moon and Sun here are tuned into the spiritual truths of Pisces. Sag acts as a container for spiritual truth. So we have metaphysical, religious, and philosophical ideas. And Pisces is the raw stuff of actual spiritual truth, the what we call consciousness, this very, very mysterious stuff. We're going to be able to use this entire cycle to align our conscious and unconscious minds. That's one thing that happens when Sun and Moon are in contact with Pluto, because this is really conscious and this is really unconscious. Pluto, unconscious. So we're going to be able to get those two talking to each other, in touch with each other. We're going to be able to uproot obstacles to inclusivity and spiritual acceptance. So basically anything that society has fed us around economic class, heritage and ethnicity, sexuality and gender, anything divisive, I really encourage everybody to bring that up for review during this cycle and at this time of the new moon. I encourage everyone in Pisces fashion and in Pluto in late Sag fashion to really examine your basis for prejudice. And because we all have prejudice, we all it's part of how a psyche works. We develop ideas judge, prejudice. We prejudge. We have an idea before we've experienced the thing, and it's not an indemnification. I'm not indicting anyone. We all do that to some extent. It happens, and we have to be vigilant, know that it happens, and make moves against it. But this moon is going to give a really amazing opportunity to see the basis for our prejudice in the light of how much we have in common. So another way to say it is all our prejudices are based on differences. Even like people who think that a race of people are superior to another based on genetics. If you look at genetics, you'll find that people have to the order of like 8 or 9% commonalities to each other. And the differences that we focus so intensely upon are representative of a fraction, just a minute sliver of what's important. So there's an opportunity here during this cycle. I'm not going to try to convince you to like everyone, but I do want to convince you to consider everyone in the light of universal truth, natural law, and the great commonalities that we share. I think that would be one of the more excellent uses of this cycle, because as we go on and we notice waxing quarter and the full moons, we're going to have a lot of opportunity to explore our differences. We're going to have a lot of opportunity to explore those things that stand out, maybe annoy us about other people. All right, fam. Last thing I want to mention is that Saturn is here. Saturn's here in the degree of Fomalhaut, and he's going to go a little further past, and then through retrograde motion, and then direct motion again. He's going to be in the vicinity of Fomalhaut for about the remainder of 2023. So, wow. Right. Let's put all that in one place. What can we expect, friends? Integrity, honor, honesty, purity. We can expect make or break tests of authenticity in these areas. Again, integrity, honor, honesty, purity. The royal stars are going to give power and tests. We might experience, very likely, the revelation of hidden material, the discovery of hidden truths, be they personal truths or possibly family truths. That's a big Pluto square classic. We could be revealing of the secrets. We could be revealing of the hidden. We could be discovering, deep philosophical, metaphysical, religious, religio-spiritual, and genuine spiritual truths of the nature of deepest realization this month. We have Pluto with Sun, Moon, and there's going to be a little bit with this in late Sag, late Pisces, a quality of spiritual lifting of the veil, like a self-discovery or an awakening. And with the eclipse, it's much more likely that things are going to be shaken up. So it's shaken up to that long-term effect. Even if it's not recognizable in the short term, I think this will be for everyone an awakening impulse. These degrees of the sky are very rich with wisdom. Also, Pluto square Sun, manipulation, control issues, power and powerlessness, coercion, pressure, abuse, occulted subjects, the occulted in general, unconscious forces, obsession. And again, that's a North Node quality as well as a Pluto quality. We have a lot We have a lot going on in the obsession department, astrologically speaking, this month. So we may want to be constructively channeling these energies by researching, by going into the expression of our fixations and our obsessions around truth. Again, especially resonant with spiritual, metaphysical, there's deep kind of oneness type truths, non-duality type truths, the real radical, real core, real root truths. We have this total solar eclipse. I just want to put this all in one place for everyone. And when you have an eclipse, the node gets 18 degrees, and anything within 18 degrees is considered eclipsed. That's just, and you'll see even a little shadow. You'll see on the sun and moon when they're within 18 degrees. But it's not an arbitrary thing. It's not an abstraction. A node gets 18 degrees. And if we take that out, we see Uranus, Mercury, Sun, Moon, Eris, Jupiter, yeah, they're all eclipsed. Chiron is not quite eclipsed, but at the same time, is part of this rolling conjunction, is definitely conjoined to this Eris Jupiter. And I would give Chiron just, Chiron is certainly part of this party. One thing we're going to have here with Uranus and Eris, North Node, and all of this momentum, all of this energy generating force, we're going to have a lot of surge towards the future. There's going to be a desire to arrive, to get where we're going, to do what's next. There's going to be an anticipation and a general sense of wanting to discover what the hell is going on and what we're doing and why. I want to make one last note, and because I've said so much already just about this new moon, and this is just a side note, but it's an important one. When we look at the nodal axis here, what we're going to see is that Pluto is square the nodal axis for this moon. Now, Pluto's going to be square the nodal axis as he moves into Capricorn. So we have an ingress here, a star sign ingress. And I'm gonna be part of a roundtable conversation with let's see, Maria Schumacher, Julie Sherwood, Verone Bright, and River Culver. So keep your eyes open for that. We're gonna get together and we're just gonna do a little panel on Pluto square the nodes, Pluto moving into Capricorn, and this really, really important passage also having to do with the United States Pluto return, first Pluto return. We're going to be doing that between now and the next new moon. So keep your eyes out for that video. We're going to talk a lot about the dynamics of the nodes, what it means to square the nodes, and how this might manifest. And I'm not going to talk about it a lot in this video because I've already talked way too much about this new moon. There's just so much going on here, folks. But I think we can put it all together in one place, just as we've done. And I'd like to leave it there and move on. So the rest of the video should go pretty quick. We're going to move through this stuff. This is the waxing quarter moon, April 27th, 2023. And we have the sun having moved into Aries, moon into Cancer, opposing Pluto. Before we jump into alignments and relationships, I just want to say the intention of every waxing quarter moon is a time of work. It's a time of raising energy. It's a time of intensity, and it's very outward facing intensity. It's very generative, constructive, building intensity. So there's often an energy of doing, of accomplishing, of growing. And if we know the sort of blueprint for the cycle, we can start to, we can be very intentionally building towards what we want to use the lunar surge, that wave, what we want to ride that wave to manifest or accomplish that month. For this moon, the sun is on Hamal. So sun has moved on to fixed star Hamal. That's the head of the ram, the budding head of the ram. It's a star that's associated with independence, a star that's not afraid to challenge. It's a star that's associated a little bit with debate and even polemic argument. We have moon in Cancer opposite Pluto here on the cusp. And it's going to subject the inner world of the moon in Cancer, very sensitive to the extremes of Pluto. And Pluto's on this cusp of power. So, there could be the opportunity here to have our feelings hurt by people in power, or people trying to use power over us or against us. We could also add in to this complicated equation the dimension of the lunar nodes and see that a grand cross or a mystic cross with Pluto opposite moon, T squared to the lunar nodes, is one of the more frustrating and complicated karmic challenges that we can find ourselves in. And what it does is it sets up difficult situations inwardly where the conscious mind, signified by moon, and the unconscious mind, signified by Pluto, are just sort of at odds. And whenever they try to balance, they run into these squares, these obstacles. And likewise, whenever in this situation, an individual or a group tries to move towards the north or south node, manifest their karmic destiny or purpose or intentions, doing anything having to do with karma, which is everything, then there are from this axis squares just every which way. You can't really balance north and south node without running into Pluto squares, moon squares. So things very frustrating. It can really be crazy making. It can be so frustrating that people just, they just kind of aren't able to meet that because they aren't able to bring their resources into the same frame, their conscious and unconscious resources. So here we are in a collective situation where the collective karmas that want to express, we want to be starting a new cycle. We want to be wrapping up the old. We want to be making sense of all this turbulence that's been emerging the last couple months. And we want to hopefully hit this thing as a springboard and make some progress off it. And all of that's going to be complicated. It's going to be complicated. It's not a deal breaker, friends. There's no deal breakers. The harshest aspects form the strongest and, most interesting, deepest, and helpful people. But those people are all made that way because they've had to overcome that inner journey and balance that very challenging alchemy. So here we are in this way, and collectively, um, the journey's not going to be easy. The journey is not going to be easy. We do have Mercury with Uranus in Aries, and this is nice. This is going to be able to give access to insight. And by insight, I mean we might have flashes of inspiration or intuitive or just instinctual knowledge about the future, where we're going. This may just come from nowhere. It may just be one of those weird horse sense kind of feelings. Things often are when Uranus and Aries gets involved. It's very instinctual. But I do think that the two of these planets together relative to the sun and this kind of north node energy about the future and where we're going, I think it's very good omens to give us a nice advantage. And the last thing I see here on the waxing quarter that's really worth mentioning is this Chiron in Pisces, square to Mars, so close. And I think, yeah, we have 7 minutes, 7 minutes separating Chiron and Mars. And when anything gets that close, it's going to manifest. It's going to play out. So around this time, we could have a connection between our wounds and our sensitivity and our healing. All of that's Chiron. And it's going to connect all that, wounds and sensitivity and healing, to sex and violence. That's that's Mars, sex and violence. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. It's gonna connect our trauma response and our hackles around safety. It's correlate with Chiron to Mars's aggression and libido. So as the cycle develops, I think we could see an emergence here of confusion, aggression, of depression, of emotional extremes. All of this could be really likely correlate to this mystic cross. And it's important to understand. It's possible for this eclipse to occlude healing potential, such as I've talked about some of these healing potentials. It's going to be possible for this eclipse to really kind of take over. And for some people, this may be a real crazy maker. This may be a really difficult cycle. So even if you're not one of those people, you're likely to see those people struggling and breaking down and in conflict situations that are causing them emotional upheaval. At best, we can use our experience to heal by tapping into Pisces. Always available with Pisces is grace, non-reactivity, and forgiveness, deep universal love. And that'll offset some of the potential here for volatile emotions. And we do have Jupiter with Eris, so we have a blessing in unearthing our own complicity, unearthing our own projections, unearthing our own blind spots, discovering how we're hiding even from ourselves. That's a huge Eris medicine. And with Jupiter being being able to accept and love and feel optimistic and or hopeful about those rejected and othered parts of ourselves. I don't want to spend too long on this one, friends. I want to move on. I want to get the full moon going. So let's go. All right. So full moon, May 5th, 2023. And here we are with the sun in Aries, moon just on the Virgo Libra cusp. We have a penumbral lunar eclipse, which, like I mentioned, just a little shadow, just a little discoloration of the moon without any real occultation. The sun is with Mercury and Uranus, still with North Node. And we have this eclipse, this full moon is happening on the Libra Aries axis. And that's the axis of I, thou, the axis of self, other. And this is likely going to confuse interpersonal dealings. And we could be getting glimpses here of where this is going for us, our future self, who we want to be. We could be getting glimpses about how to unify our vision of who we want to be with the person that we are and the person that we realistically have a chance to become. We could originate out of this new ways of being in relation to others, but it's more likely that we would want that, have an appetite for that North Node here, but not quite just yet be able to accomplish that. Again, with Uranus, Mercury, we may have flashes of insight, and we may have to settle for that right now. We may have something really on the tip of our tongue or something that we can feel just around the corner, something coming. We aren't going to be, due to the power of the nodes, we aren't going to be able to really have access to it in all likelihood this time. Now, I want to take a little time. There's a lot going on in this moon, the full moon. We have Saturn remaining in the degree of Fomalhaut, even though Venus has moved off of Aldebaran and Mars off of Sirius. We have Pluto gone retrograde and moving back then into Sag, and he'll be back in Sag until 2024. So Saturn will be on Fomalhaut and Pluto in Sag for about the same amount of time, the rest of 2023 and going into early 2024. We have this huge stellium. We have just this huge, just monstrous conglomeration of planets here: Uranus, Sun, Mercury, North Node, Jupiter, Eris, Chiron. Taken as a whole, it could just be an urge to move forward in healing ways, an urge to resolve deep issues, and an urge to emerge from the recent turbulence and any recent difficulty better for it, having learned or somehow made a new start, even if it represented a total ending and a death for us. Now, all of this is really interesting, but it doesn't even really begin to command my attention compared to the fact that Mars is now opposite Pluto, and these two bodies are T-squared by Eris. Now, I don't talk about Eris as a higher octave of Mars and Pluto, but I think she is. I want to go out on a limb, hopefully not with a saw here, and say that I like Alan Clay's research into the dwarf planets. I like his work. I like his logic and his take on it. And he and I both consider Pluto to be a higher octave of Mars in the sense of octave theory. That Mars is representing the conscious or egoic desires, and Pluto is representing the unconscious or soul level desires. Eris is in this model then a higher octave of Pluto, and really doesn't have as much to do with desires, conscious or unconscious, as just primordial whims and urges. Just the primordial urge of Eris is a big concept when we start to look at her showing up in charts. When we look at octave theory, we're just looking at the idea that the inner planets, the outer planets, are sort of operating on the same frequencies to each other. You have the idea that Mercury is in the same sort of family of experience as Uranus, and that Uranus is a higher octave of Mercury. And for Uranus and Mercury, we have a third octave too. That would be Makemake. But without getting into octave theory, I'll send everyone to Alan Clay's website and take his classes and support that genius, because he's awesome. That guy's awesome. Watch his videos. Get into octave theory. I think octave theory goes back to Dane Rudyard and the sort of like all that transhuman astrology. So there's a lot that's out there. There's a lot that you can learn about if you were to look up octave theory. Just for now, just for the purpose of this video, I want to say that Pluto, Mars, and Eris are all 3 octaves of one concept. And in a way, you could say that concept is desire, drive, urge, impulse. Yeah, you could say that's it. That's basically it. But these are astrological archetypes, so of course we're going to get a lot more complex. We can think of Mars as representing, well, we've already said it once, we might as well just oversimplify, stick with the oversimplification, sex and violence. Mars is correlate to our drive. Mars is an adventurer. Pluto, by contrast, where we have sex and violence, we have death and rebirth. So it's sort of like more ultimate expression. That's where it gets this higher octave idea. Where Mars is associated with drive, Pluto is associated with metamorphosis. Where Mars is an adventurer, Pluto is a transformer. When we bring Eris into the picture, we can round out this trinity of death and rebirth. Sorry, that's Pluto's death and rebirth. Mars is sex and violence. Eris is actually a bit of a wisdom expression of these. And I would say that her wisdom is in humility and secrecy. Or, there's a word for it and it escapes me. It's the word that describes knowing when to reveal and knowing when to conceal. I'm going to say it's like related to jurisprudence, but it's like relative to information. Okay. Big vocabulary day for me, friends. I don't often just straight out forget words, but I've forgotten that one. So we'll have to stick with the concept this video. Sorry. Eris is humility and just the wisdom of knowing when to hold them, knowing when to fold them, knowing when to walk away and when to run. So Eris is the primordial chaos, and Eris functions as a trickster. So we have the conscious in Mars, we have the unconscious in Pluto, and we have the primordial, that which just almost is and doesn't even really depend on consciousness to do its thing. Urges and whims and just the chaos of Eris. Now, when we look at the T-square, that's going to set up some interesting stuff. The T-square, it sets up conscious and unconscious urges, right? Conscious urges, unconscious urges. Well, they're opposite. They're going in different directions. Just like I said, the waxing quarter moon could be a time of emotional turbulence with the moon here because of the conscious, unconscious dichotomy with moon Pluto. There's the same sort of juxtaposition with Mars as an inner planet to Pluto. There's a little bit closer relationship. There's a relationship of drive, desire. There's a relationship of like compulsion to accomplish, but this does set up some interesting stuff. I think that Mars, Pluto, Eris, and we have a Mars, North Node, South Node, Pluto, Mystic Cross here. I think that what this is going to do is set up a desire to understand. And it could be an obsessive desire. We could really want to understand why and what next and what's going on. And we could be motivated to penetrate deep truths. That's going to be a Pluto in late Sag artifact. Mars in Gemini wants to know, and Pluto in late Sag will cut to the bone marrow of the issue of truth. So we can use any obsessive qualities to drive research into the nature of truth. This is going to set up a power struggle dynamic. Coercion and manipulation could become problematic. And Jupiter here can save us from some of this. But with the node there, the North Node there, and South Node, again, creating this mystic cross, I don't think Jupiter is going to save us on this one. I don't think he has the power to contend with Eris and the North Node in conjunction while dealing with the South Node in opposition and Pluto Mars in T-square. I think Jupiter will keep a lot of situations from going totally off the rails. When we have Pluto Mars Eris resonance here, we're dealing with a very concentrated, very potent form of something that wants to happen. So what wants to happen? We really could out of this have some sort of total inner conflict. This is really highly possible. I want to like not mince words about that at all. There could be a total inner conflict, and then with Eris here, we could project it. We could project it onto others. Moon in Libra. You see how this is working, and we could really cause trouble or be subject to trouble caused by others under this influence. So it's going to be a really good time, this full moon, May 5th, to remember all this, remember all this, and to use any expression of opposition to our goals, desires, drives, use any opposition to that as a way to look at the truth, the truth of our need to grow. Mars in Gemini is, typically a little immature and could use some growing. We can look at it as a combination, Mars, Pluto, especially in opposition, that's famous for the exertion of force. It's not always physical force. It's not always violent force. It's not even always threatening force, but it's always forceful. And it's usually coercive, even if it doesn't threaten. At this time, there's a real tendency in this chart with the nodes, with all these relationships, to be sort of visualizing the future through a lens darkly. Okay, we might not really be able to see. There could be an overwhelming quality of not really seeing the full fruition of where this is going yet. The potential for insight and inspiration regarding future developments is as likely for the potential is as likely under this influence as the potential for delusion. And a full moon in Libra is going to mean that all these energies we've talked about are likely to express in our one-on-one relationships. Close relationships, love relationships, and there's a real intensity here. There's an intensity because ruler of Sun, Mars, is on some big stars, Alpha and Beta, Gemini, Castor and Pollux, if you know the myths, twins, and the ruler of Moon, Venus, is also here in very late Taurus on Betelgeuse, which is a very, very, very fortunate star. And that's another influence, like Jupiter being here with North Node and Eris, kind of able to handle some of that weight for us. Venus here on Betelgeuse is going to tilt any situations that have to do with our sense of self-worth, our sense of emotional security or stability in that inner in that inner sense that's based on our feelings, how we feel about ourselves, our values, how we hold ourselves, and all these Venus Moon qualities. Again, with the advice to try to discover our own truth out of any obstacles or difficulties that come our way this month, and try to discover how we're complicit in these obstacles. What are we doing that keeps these obstacles being put in our way? All right. And with that, let's move on to the waning quarter moon. We're almost there. Holy geez, what a month. All right. So the intention of the waning quarter moon, when the moon is closing its square with the sun, coming back around, is to wind it down. We're going to start letting go and letting go of the wave of energy we've been riding for the last 2 weeks, the high wave, and we're going to start to make our way down to the next low point, getting ready for the next new moon. That usually means retrospection, taking account of what worked, what didn't, looking at what we want to carry into the future, and cutting away, dropping what we don't. So the sun is just coming out of the North Node's jurisdiction here at the end of Aries, about to move into Taurus. And we still have a Mars-Pluto opposition. It's gotten closer. We have an interesting Venus-Saturn trine. It's very close, and both of those are sextile to Mercury. So Mercury sits eclipsed, and this could increase any kind of compulsive fixations that the mind might be subject to at this time. Venus and Saturn were the two planets that were in contact with royal stars for the new moon. So I think that during this lunar cycle, this contact with Mercury may put us into a mind of, dealing with the themes of power and the tests that come with dealing with the themes of integrity, honesty, those Aldebaran and Fomalhaut kind of challenges to our power. They're tests of integrity, and we need to be aware of them. So this could be maybe front and center for a lot of people right now. Venus and Saturn are also good in Gemini and Aquarius for realization, for solving problems, for genius sort of innovations, and just kind of radical next level thinking. It's really connected there. Mars, Pluto, and Eris stay in orb. They're opposing Mars and Pluto, and T-squaring in the case of Eris, that opposition. So if we were going to look at this chart and just try to synthesize something, just say something about it, this feels a little bit, especially with the sun moving away from node now and moon clear of any outside influences, this feels a little bit like coming up for air. And we might really be under it. We might really be under it this month until May. Yeah, really around May 12th. We may not get a chance to really see things clearly or breathe this month, except in retrospect. So I think if anything, this cycle, when we think about coming up for air, we can think about putting down any argument against what is essentially going to be our own unresolved material, our own blind spots, the things that we have in our own psyches that we aren't aware of, or that are too painful or unresolved, that we still have those knots in our neck. And when we see someone that reminds us of that, we go, ooh, and our neck knot flares up. And we go, ooh, I really don't like them. That's the danger all month with Saturn opposite Pluto, T-squared Eris, that we project our own bullshit onto other people and get mad at them for it. We might not be able to get out of this influence and even see that we're doing that until about now with any consistency. So, where does that leave us? What is the medicine of this cycle? Well, we're going to look to the next new moon. And, for this one, we see Pluto and Mars opposing to a 0 degree. And of course, Eris doesn't move. So we're going to go into next month, May 19th's new moon, in a little bit of the same situation, just more closely aligned. The angles are closer. The sun and moon will be for the next new moon on Algol, which is the Lilith star. So get ready to honor anything around the needs of the repressed feminine, the feminine side within your own psyche and the collective feminine. This is coming up for review front and center. So, there's a lot of healing to do there. Thousands of years of healing to do. The medicine in this month, my friends, might be as simple as knowing your own chart and knowing where some of these major alignments are going to hit. The Pisces Aries cusp Sirius, Aldebaran, Fomalhaut. Where are they in your chart? That Mars in early Cancer and Pluto in late Sag on the Cappy cusp. What are they activating in your chart? That's going to be a lot of the medicine. Forewarned is forearmed. And so we can know that this difficult month is coming, and we can know where it's likely to hit us, how it's likely to attack us, and we can make our plans to defend ourselves. I want to encourage everybody to be very good to each other this month and to hold yourself up and hold others up too. These Pluto and Mars and Eris type cycles really have a cutting energy. They really have a raw, just burning energy that is hot and aggressive, and the most constructive use of it is to cut clean to the bone of questions, issues, truths, Pluto in late Sag, and anything that you're examining. The Pluto in late Sag, Eris in Pisces square. When we bring these two forces together, the late Sag, late Pisces, there's a ton of potential for spiritual realization, which is only to say the kind of realization that sees in others the truths that we recognize in ourselves. Spiritual, interconnected, interdependent. And in some sense, it's true that the deepest strengths and most shining examples of fortitude can only be forged through overcoming, can only be forged through going through circumstances like this, succeeding in the face of these difficulties and obstacles, succeeding and learning, turning the poison into medicine. That's what we're doing here. I started a little project, just something, a Discord server. There's a link on my website, oneskyastrology.com, where on the Contact Me page, you can find a link to the Discord server. I don't know if you use Discord and you like the platform, come check us out. Well, I just want to thank you all. I don't have a lot of closing stuff or promotional things to say this month. I will be doing a little project with the 4 other astrologers that I mentioned later in April's lunar month, and that should be something that if you keep an eye out for, you'll see before too long. We'll be talking about Pluto and relationship to the lunar nodes, being that Pluto's about to move into Capricorn, and will do so T-squaring the nodes. Now, you might not think that would lead to much, but whoo boy, it does. So check that video out. And friends, I don't want to just go on. I don't have a lot to promote or even to say. I want to thank you all for watching. I just want to send my love and appreciation to everyone who tunes in and does their best to understand the skies and to live in accord with the bigger picture. Thank you. Friends, I'll see you next month. I look forward to it. Big blessings.